Previously in Dark Places.
And I happened to turn around and look back to my four-wheeler, and on the other side of my four-wheeler, this creature stood. I mean, he was huge.
I'm Junebug Fugit, and you're in Dark Places, where we shine a little light on the topics just under the veil of reality. How you like that? I've had a rough week. Had a lot of car trouble and just a bunch of nonsense at work, and it's been pretty aggravating. Me and Jimmy have been talking about just leaving society and finding us a little cabin out in the woods and a big bunker with lots of food and weapons and stuff, and just getting away from all this nonsense and technology and government control and just all of it. So I'm looking forward to the show this week to kind of take my mind off all that nonsense. But in order to do that, we have to have the Nicolas Cage Meltdown of the Week. And here with the news this week is my friend Mr. Haunted.
Mr. Haunted here with In Dark Places news. 6 women in neon green leotards attack 2 New York subway riders. There's a video going around that shows the group punching 2 19-year-old women on a subway train near Times Square on Sunday. 2 women were attacked early Sunday morning on a New York City subway by a mysterious group of women in neon green bodysuits. A video of the assault shared on social media shows the group, which has been called the Green Goblin Gang by local media, punching and tossing 2 19-year-old women on a subway train near Times Square around 2 a.m. The assailants escaped the scene with a cell phone and a handbag, the police told the New York Post. The mother of one of the victims told the Post that her daughter told her she was attacked by aliens, adding, "I didn't know what she was talking about." The mother said the attack happened on her daughter's birthday, not on her birthday. This is how she spent her 19th birthday. "I hope they get what they deserve, and then some, because it's disgusting," she said. The woman told the New York Daily News that her daughter and friend did nothing to provoke the attack. There were no words exchanged prior. She said, "In police footage I've seen, you could see that my daughter and her friend were standing on the platform, talking and laughing. They bumped my daughter and her friend, like strong-armed them." Although the teens refused medical attention at the scene, the birthday girl's mother told the Daily News that they were later admitted to a local hospital. The woman said her daughter had bruises on her shoulder, stomach, and lower extremities. The New York Police Department Public Information Office told HuffPost the bodysuit-clad women escaped the subway and are still on the loose. Detectives reportedly told one of the victims' parents that they've seen the attackers' social media pages. So, were they green goblins? Were they aliens? We really don't know, and they're still on the loose. Now, back to more In Dark Places. Take it, Junebug!
Thanks, Jimmy. Get well soon. This episode of In Dark Places is sponsored in part by Kia and the year-end sales event.
So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. I hate to go and leave this pretty sight. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu.
Adieu, adieu, to you and you and you.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye to the 2006 models with up to $3,000 cash back or visit kia.com.
We got a great show for you this week. We're continuing our Cryptid Binge. Mr. Keith Loftin is here. Keith Loftin is a member of the Northern Kentucky Bigfoot Research Group. He is a teammate of Mr. Thomas Shea, who we had on last week. He's got several years of experience out in the field investigations, and he has tons of cool stories to tell. We're happy to have him here, Mr. Keith Loftin. How's it going, Keith?
It's going well. Thank you for having me on, too.
Yeah, it's an honor. I'm just tickled that you come on. It's going to be fun.
Oh, I am very gracious to be here. Yeah, I've been a researcher for 30-plus years now. I've been hooked up with Tom for, goodness. Well, time gets away, but it's been several years now. And the whole Northern Kentucky group, I mean, our core group that goes out, you couldn't ask for a more knowledgeable, finer bunch of people than we have in our little group.
That's good. He was telling me that he's got different members for different jobs and everything, so that's a well-oiled machine. I like that.
We do. We've got John Gregory Jarosevich, and I hope I pronounced his last name right. Dusty Ruth, myself are kind of the team leaders along with Tom, and we've got some younger folks who don't have quite as much field experience, but they're full of good ideas and they think outside the box and they're eager to learn and to experience things. So, yeah, it works out real well. John can do about anything, but he typically shies away from the audio stuff. Dusty and I do a lot in the audio side, and then, of course, Tom is an excellent tracker, the best I've ever seen by far, and he's been teaching me, and I'm getting better. And then we've got, younger crew members who, they do a lot of the scanning, setting bait traps, gifts, or however you want to call it, and they're always on a thermal, they're always listening and looking, and we sit around and we talk about ideas. Would this work? Would that work? And like I said, they're not as experienced as the rest of us, but in brainstorming, they are really good. They think outside the box and have some really good ideas. In a few years, they're really going to be something.
That's nice. I bet it's a lot of fun. I would love that.
Oh, we have a ball. And we joke around a lot and stuff at base camp, but when things get serious, it's all hands on, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and everybody is 100% locked down and serious.
I'm I'm in West Virginia. I'm right on the Kentucky border. You could throw a rock and reach it into Kentucky. So if I wasn't clear over on the other side of the state, I'd be right there with y'all. That sounds like a lot of fun.
We'd love to have you.
That'd be great. We started up our UFO group right before Tom started up his group there. It was in about 2013. We started up our UFO group, and we started out. We had about 7 members, 6, 7 members when we first started, but they've all drifted apart, and just me and my buddy Kyle right now.
I got you. Well, our core group that goes out consistently is there's 7 or 8 of us that form the inner circle, I guess, but we're all more like family. I mean, we stay in contact whether or not we're in the field. Our group's very tight, and if any of them called me right now and said, hey, I need you here, I would be on my way, and we've got a member in Michigan, one up by Chicago. Of course, Dusty's in Ohio, and Ben and Rich and Ben and Rich and Tom are there in Kentucky. So, and Laura's in Kentucky. So, yeah, I mean, we're more of a big family than we are anything. But like I said, everybody knows the pecking order, and, we all work together very well.
Me and my buddy Dwayne saw quite a few of your members there at Crypticon. We didn't get to talk to everybody, but it seemed like you all real friendly, though. Nice little happy group.
That was our core group that you saw. I mean, the people you saw there behind the tables, those are the ones that we're out in the field together.
We first met you in 2019, and we just kind of rushed through. There was so much going on that day, and we were in a hurry to get back into West Virginia and junk, and we just kind of passed through and said hi and kept on going to the next exhibit and stuff. But I made sure that
you and your buddy are quite personable, and this is the first podcast I've ever done. I've been asked to do them before, and I've always refused them, but I really took a shine to you and Dwayne, and when you asked me, that's why I'm here now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We made it a point we were going to sit and talk to you all this year, check out your castings and everything, and really impressive. We loved it. We could have just sat there and talked to you guys for hours.
And we could have talked to you for hours. We've got a lot of stories, and we've had a lot of experiences.
Do you find that there's more activity like in the daytime or nighttime? I always heard like all these shows and stuff, they go out in the nighttime looking, but that tends to be more like when they're kind of foraging for food.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times it's, and of course it's going to depend on how much infiltration by people there are in an area. I think a lot of times they will rest more during the heat of the day and then venture out in the evening when it's cooler, but there is still a lot of activity that takes place during the day. One story that comes to mind, an area that we researched quite a bit. Tom and I got there before anybody else, and the landowner had cleared a spot up on top of a hill. He very accommodating to us, and he thought we'd have a better vantage point being higher than in the hollow where we usually had base camp. So we got there early and jumped on a side-by-side to run up there and check the site out to make sure it was going to work. And before we went up the hill to the site, Tom's looking past me. He's on my right-hand side. I'm driving. And he's looking past me at something, and I can't see it. And, Tom, what are you looking at? And he said, over there peeking out behind that tree, there's one over there, and I'm looking, and I can't see it. And we pull up a little bit, and I can't see it. And finally, we back up where we were, and he said, well, it's gone. And I look further to the east and back, and it's standing there behind a big fork tree with its head right there in the fork. And it's 50 yards maybe.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there staring at this thing 2 o'clock in the afternoon and have a high-definition camera on this cell phone in my pocket and don't even think to reach into my pocket and take a picture. Probably sat there for 3 minutes with my mouth hanging open, watching this thing, looking at me. And when Tom said, maybe we could get a better view of it up on top of the hill, and we run the side-by-side up there real quick, and of course it was gone, but about 10 seconds later came this monstrous scream that just shook the woods. So, yeah, there's a lot of activity during the daytime, too.
Yeah, I think they're more kind of like, say, night or day, the one we're always just whenever. Yeah,
I mean, I think in some of your parks and things like that where you have a lot of people hiking or biking or whatever, I mean, their curiosity, of course, comes into play, but I think they may sit and watch. I don't think they move around as much in more of a high traffic area like they would at night, but in some areas I think they're active day and night.
It seems to be the way it always goes, too. Whenever you got a camera, you never even think nothing about it. The same way.
Yeah, and, Tom was sitting right next to me, and he has a phone with a camera on it, too, and he didn't reach for his either, so I don't feel too bad.
You just get so caught up in the moment, you don't even think about it.
Oh, no, that was the furthest thing from my mind. I was taking in all the facial features and structures and hair color and everything else and things around it for size comparison and things like that. No, I never even thought about taking a picture. I've thought about it since then a bunch of times, though.
Yeah, you can just kick yourself when you get to thinking about it.
Oh, my. Terribly so.
I've done that a lot with watching for UFOs and everything, and when I actually see one out, I just don't even think about getting my camera. I'll have it out in the car or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned leaving gifts for them. What types of gifts do you use? Tom was talking about he had a squeaky toy and he would put up in a tree. Have you tried other things?
Oh, yeah. We've used squeaky toys at different times. I know years ago Tom had used meat, had used chicken, raw chicken, things like that. They really seem to like sweets. Reese's peanut butter cups, things, pastries, things like that, apple pie. I mean, they really like those things, seem to, and we've had some success with the molasses deer blocks, the bait blocks, the attractants. We've had some success with those. And, Ben Taylor actually came up with that, and we hung one over a creek. And the packaging on this was, stronger than what an onion sack would be. Yeah. And it was suspended about 7.5 feet off of the water. And something grabbed it, ripped it off there, and actually tore it in half. Huh. And so we've had some luck with a little bit of everything.
That's all right. I don't remember if my buddy Dwayne told you the story or not. I think he probably did. He was talking about, he took some garland from his Christmas tree. It was after Christmas a couple years ago. He took some of his garland with him up in the hills. He's been having a lot of activity up in a place where his parents live and finding footprints and stuff up there. And he showed you the pictures of the footprints. I can't remember if he told you about the garland, but he strung some garland up in a tree up there where he'd been seeing some horse skulls and just random stuff like that in a pile. And he waited a couple months. He put some trail cams up all around it. And he waited a couple months. He went back, and his garland was gone off the tree. And he was looking around like maybe the wind blew it off or whatever, and didn't have anything on his trail cams. But he found these 4 feathers in the spot near one of the trees, like they had taken the garland and they left him 4 feathers in place of it as a gift.
Yeah, I have never had that happen to me. I know Dusty has had some things like that happen with marbles and things like that, but I have never had it. Anything I've ever put out has just been taken and it's gone. And to elaborate on that, you was talking about the garland. We've actually, one of the neat things we did was glow sticks. You break them and shake them.
Yep.
We would hang them, several of them, out through the woods and leave them hanging all night long. And every once in a while, you could see one looks like it got grabbed and then ripped off the tree, and it's gone.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I have tried marbles myself on the mountain that's here behind my house. I've heard some tree knocks and things up here from time to time, and weird howls and stuff. And I went up on to the other side of this mountain where I grew up at, and left 3 marbles up there on a big high rock cliff. It's like 10 feet high. There's no way any people are going to see it up there. I left 3 marbles up there in like a little triangle formation. And I waited a couple weeks, and I went back, and one of the marbles was gone. The other 2 were still there. I had a trail cam on them, and nothing on the trail cam. It didn't pick up anything. And so I waited about a month or so and went back up there, and the other two marbles were gone, and there's like trees knocked down all in the area, limbs down and stuff, like something that just got mad there and just tore up the whole area.
I'll be daggone. I've tried the gifting thing a little bit, and like I said, I've had things taken, but I've never had anything left. But I've talked to a lot of people who have, so there seems to be something to it.
That's pretty wild. That's interesting. Do you have any stories of people reporting the weird, like when they drop down on all fours, do like the spider crawl, they call it?
I had talked to one gentleman that said he had seen 3 of them, and 2 of them were actually sitting just inside of there was a big open area inside this woods, and 2 of them was sitting in some brush just inside the woods off of one side, and another one was actually driving deer towards them, and said when it got in this open, it broke down on all fours, chasing the deer, and then about halfway across this clearing, it popped back up on 2 legs, and he said it was actually faster on 2 legs than it was on 4.
That's crazy, ain't it? You don't hear a whole lot of that. It's not real common, but I've always, like the stories I do hear, it's just like a one solid motion that you can go flat on the ground or straight up and like don't even...
Yeah, the way he described this one, it was more of like a chimpanzee or a gorilla would run on 4. It wasn't, real low to the ground. It was more, squatted in the rear and, the arms out forward, and it was running like that on 4. And then it popped up on 2, and he said it was actually faster on 2 legs than it was on 4.
That's wild. I think I may have seen one. I've had tons of UFO and ghost experiences and everything, and I started listening to all these shows. My buddy Dwayne got me into Bigfoot. I knew it existed and everything. I just wasn't following Bigfoot. I was more into UFOs mostly. And Dwayne kept telling me, no, man, you got to check out this podcast and stuff like that. And I started listening. I've just been hooked on it for the last 4 or 5 years now. And I started thinking, like, how in the world is it that I've seen all these ghosts and UFOs and junk, and I never saw a Bigfoot? And I started thinking, and there was one time I was like 3 years old in Cabway Lingo State Park here. It's kind of up near Huntington, West Virginia, up that way. I went there with my mom and dad and my uncle. My uncle took me out walking around on a little trail, and we came up on this thing. It was laying, I guess we must have woke it up. It was laying there asleep, I guess. And it was a juvenile, just a little one. And it was laying there right in the trail, and we had woke it up. And as we were walking on the trail, come around this little bend, and it let out the awful scream there ever was, and just busted my ears. I was screaming and crying because I was just a kid. And I guess I had blocked that out because it just scared me so much and just forgot about it over the years. But it just came back to me that like they would get on their bellies like that, and because it took off up the side of the mountain flat on its stomach and just all the way up to the top of the mountain and flew. It was there in 2-3 seconds. It was up to the top of the mountain.
Oh yeah, I've never, I've seen them traverse inclines before, but I've never seen one what I'd consider to be just all out going up a real steep embankment or something like that. But I've talked to people that said it's unbelievable how fast they can go up something just incredibly steep.
Yeah, it's crazy, just unreal speed.
I have seen personally. I've seen here at a spot in southern Illinois where I'm from. We have an area here that has sporadic activity, but it seems like the activity always has something to do with a juvenile. And let's see, this is 22, so it would have been 6 years ago. For about a month, I got to deal with an adult, 2 juveniles here. And the juveniles were about 5 feet, and I don't know if they were twins or what, but there was a pair of them because I thermed them, and I've seen them too many times. And they would occasionally, they would go on 4s going up the set-aside field, and there would be one leading that would be getting further ahead than the one behind it, and the one behind it would always pop up on 2 legs and take off running to catch the other one. So I don't know if that's more prominent in the younger creatures or whether that carries all the way through adulthood. But I have witnessed it before.
It could be. That's weird. Maybe probably like a brother and sister out, maybe.
It could have been, or it could have been twins. I don't know, but I know they were. I had a fence line there to reference height, and they was right at both at 5 feet because multiple times I've seen them walk up and down that fence line, and I've used night vision on them. I've thermed them, and I mean, too many times I've had them right there at that 4-foot high fence, and yeah, they were both right at the same height.
There's a guy that lives up the road from me a few houses, probably like 4 or 5 houses up from me. He said he was out on his porch one night last summer, and he was just out getting some fresh air, and he looked over and saw these 2 big red eyes over on the fence of the neighbor across the road from his, and it was on this mountain where I'm at, on this side of the road. And he said he just kept watching. It was just 2 big red eyeballs standing there staring at him on that fence line, and he got creeped out and went in the house after a few minutes.
I bet that's right. Have you ever got to witness that?
I have not. I'm glad, I guess, because they would probably scare me to death.
It's quite sobering. And I can speak for Tom because we've talked about it several times. Neither one of us really believed in the eye glow. In the back of our minds, we both always figured it was a reflection somehow, be it moonlight or something else. I mean, and if you think about it, you're basically, in my eyes, talking about bioluminescence. Well, marine life, yes, everything else, not really. And until it was last year, I had some activity. I had the group with me here in southern Illinois, and, I don't know, 50 feet from us, boom, there it was, the glowing red eyes, and there was no moon, there was no other light source. It was producing its own light. And it shook me, and I think it shook Tom. Some of the younger people in the group, they were really fascinated by it. I don't think it shook them as much as it did me. But we witnessed it on location in Kentucky, 8 months later, for the second time. I've seen it twice, and Tom has seen it twice. And it really is. I really never thought it was, but they truly can do that. And to all the people out there that's had that experience, like I said, the opinions I had on it were my own, and I never voiced them out loud until now. Mm-hmm. But tell everybody that's had that happen, I was wrong, you were right, and they really do have that ability.
That is creepy. That would scare me to death.
It was quite something. The second time it happened, we was on location where we got the call because the people's cow had got killed, and this thing was beating on their home during the night and things like that, and they had seen it several times. So we had been there several times. At one time we was there, we had base camp set up, over by the creek, and probably, I don't know, 80 yards up the driveway behind the house was a big barn, metal flat pole building, and this thing was beating on that pole building, so we all took off up that way, and by the time we got there, of course, it was gone, and Rich Taylor and myself and Tom was the only ones on site at that time, and Rich and I are looking with UV lights, thinking, is there a possibility that, this thing was trying to do a display, an aggressive display or something, beating on this. We were basically looking on the sides of the building for urine to see if this thing may have marked. And Tom took off back towards base camp, and these people had a huge horse trailer backed in the end of it right next to the creek, and it was perpendicular to the driveway. And when Tom got just past the horse trailer, he looked to his left, and this thing standing there with the eyes glowing. And Tom starts heading back up the driveway towards us. I looked at Rich, and I said, something shook the big man up. And he gets up there closer, and I said, Tom, what's going on? He said, I just saw that red-eyed son of a gun down there by the horse trailer. So we take off down the driveway to the horse trailer, and I look down the side of it, and nothing's there. Rich stays on the driveway, and I go to the creek to the end of the horse trailer, and it's standing in the creek with its eyes glowing.
When I think of red eyes or anything, it just comes natural from TV and movies and everything, like demonic. Do you ever get that kind of feeling? It's just evil?
It's like I said, it's a very sobering sight. I mean, a million things run through your head the minute you see that. And, yeah, I mean, that is one of the thoughts that runs through your head. I mean, it's just because everybody's seen, the Amityville Horror and Jody with the glowing red eyes, the pig in the upstairs bedroom. I mean, yeah, all these things come flooding back. I mean, it's pretty jarring, and it's a tremendous adrenaline rush. But I can't tell you why they do it. Is it threatening? Is it, I don't know. I just know that they have the ability.
It seems to be that so what registers in my mind anyway, like it's more of like a show of aggression maybe, because like it don't seem like they would just glow all the time, like they're just out strolling around in the woods. And
No, I've seen them. I have seen them, of course, at night. I've seen them in the daylight, and only twice have I ever witnessed this. So no, I don't think it's real common. I think there's a trigger to it, and I do think it represents something. I'm just not sure what.
Maybe like a skunk or whatever. It just happens.
Well, it very well could be, and that's like the smell thing. I mean, I have been close to them. I've been real close to them and never smelled a thing. And in the same turn, the area where the cow got killed, we actually had Cliff Barrickman on site there with us, and there was an odor on the side of a pine tree where we found some tracks, and boy, Cliff tuned into that just instantly. And he said, I know exactly what that smell is. And it was quite an unpleasant odor. And it was actually on the tree itself.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, I've been very close to them, and there's been absolutely no smell at all. But gorillas will do that when they get aggressive. They can put off an odor as a show, of dominance or whatever, or aggression. And I assume these creatures have the same ability.
There's a little road that winds around the railroad track here that used to be our main highway, and then 4-lane came through about 10 or 12 years ago or so. And the road's just abandoned now over by the railroad track, the old road. And I will go over just out walking, exercising on that road sometimes because it's paved and it's nice over there and trees around and everything. And there was one morning I was there and I smelled some kind of crazy smell like that. And it kicked in my mind that it must be a Sasquatch nearby because I'd never smelled nothing like that before. I just had the mental image that there must have been one bedded down there and it saw me coming and left.
But you very well may be right. Like I said, I mean, the smell on this tree, it wasn't so strong it would knock you down or anything like that, but it was still very prevalent on the tree. And Cliff said, you know, in his mind, no doubt, that's what it is. And I have smelled that odor before, but to varying degrees. But it's a horrid smell.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of like a skunk too. Then I think the defense mechanism is see somebody coming and it does that.
It very well may be. It very well may be. There's so much we don't know or understand about this, but we're always trying to learn more.
I think it's weird that so many people will see them like out in their yards and stuff, and like typically you'd think that they're just miles out in the middle of nowhere, and that's where they hang out at. But like people will talk about them just coming right down to the houses, like they don't even care.
Oh yeah, and you was talking about Crypticon. I was had a lady come up to me and was telling a story. Lives out in the boonies, and of course I do too. And I know what she's talking about when she talks about feral cats. You know, people just dump cats, or you know, and then they breed, and then there's just more and more of them, and they're wild. And she got in the habit of feeding them, and she would take feed up and dump it right next to the woods bordering their property, and said she had done that for quite a while. Well, one night she walked out there and she said there's a set of steps she goes down to get to apparently their home is more elevated on a hillside, and she goes down this set of steps to get towards the edge of the woods, and said it was getting dusky dark and she was watching her feet to make sure she didn't miss a step. And said when she got right there at the bottom of the steps, you know, 15 feet away is the edge of the woods, and she said she looked up, was holding a pan full of food, and this thing was standing there staring at her.
Oh, no.
And I asked her, I said, how tall do you think it was? She said 10 foot. Wow. I said, that would be a big one. And, you know, she said it didn't do anything. It just stood there. She said she just turned the pan over, dumped it right at her feet, and went backwards up the stairs, keeping her eye on it. She said it never moved. It just watched her get out of sight. She said next morning she went down there and all the food was gone.
Yeah, they've got used to getting that cat food then, coming out pretty early, regular.
There's a lot of witnesses that have came forward, and it's very common out in the country, table scraps and things like that. You would take and, you know, dump for possums, coons, whatever. You know, you dump out at the edge of the woods, or, you know, in an old garden spot or whatever you had. I mean, that's common that people would do that. And, you know, reports of, you know, one old couple gave a report of two of them fighting over the scraps. And said they got violent enough. They lived in a mobile home, this couple did, and they actually was throwing each other up against the side of the mobile home, is what they said.
Well, I bet you got a lot of good stories from people there at Crypticon. I didn't even think about that. Probably people come by all day telling you all kinds of cool stuff.
They do, and, you know, you try to talk to as many as you can and pay attention, but when there's, you know, 20 people there and everybody's talking it to say, it's difficult. But yeah, there are a lot of people, and, you know, just like you guys, we told everybody that came in and visited with us, hey, you know, you can join the Facebook page of the Northern Kentucky group, and, you know, if down the road you have a question, reach out to Tom, reach out to me. You know, we're always willing to help. We're always willing to talk to anybody, listen to your story, answer a question, you know, and hopefully, I mean, I know a lot of people joined the group after that, but, you know, hopefully if somebody gets into a tight spot or has a question about how to, you know, go with something, they'll reach out to us.
That's kind of how we do on our UFO group on Facebook. We kind of collect the stories, and hopefully that somebody would report seeing a UFO to us, and then we can get out and kind of triangulate where it's at. And I can get somebody else that lives over in 50 miles away from over here and see if they see it out in their area and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a good little networking.
It is, and you know, there was some people that had showed up there that, you know, had visited, and were a little leery about telling their stories and things like that, and, you know, maybe they just had an experience, or there's a stigma behind this, and, you know, very few people are real open about it. Everybody's kind of shielded because they think someone's going to think they're either making it up or they're nuts or whatever. And, you know, we've done it for so many years. We're so far past that, you know, it gives people an avenue if they want to talk to somebody. You know, they've got somebody they can reach out to that's going to be non-judgmental and, you know, is going to listen to their story and maybe be able to shed some light on some things for them.
That makes me think of like how many people have had experiences and just too afraid to say anything because they're afraid people make fun of them and everything.
I figure it's probably 80% or better.
I bet it would be, yeah. Because I've heard like thousands of stories on these podcasts and things that I listen to, and just people seeing them everywhere in every continent. And it's just, there's hard to say how many just don't even say nothing about it because they're afraid that people just laugh at them.
There's been sightings everywhere except Hawaii.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, there's been sightings on every landmass except Hawaii. There's never been a sighting on Hawaii.
I've heard so many, there's like no doubt in my mind. I don't know how anybody could ridicule them at this point because there's just so many reports of it now that all you got to do is just have an open mind and listen to these reports. Everybody's not making that stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the evidence that's available, and everybody says, where's the evidence at? If you look at all the evidence that's been collected and gathered and is available, there's been people sent to prison for life on less evidence than there is to support this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and new evidence is coming to light all the time. Is coming to light all the time. I mean, our group, Tom and I found something here. We're still researching it and pushing on it, but 2 months ago we found something that really is leading towards tool usage. And we're still examining it, and we're in contact with some experts in the field, I'll say, and we're not ready to make an announcement yet, but it definitely shows sign of tool usage.
It makes sense because they seem to have a language. You can hear them calling to each other, and they're knocking back and forth and stuff like that. So it makes sense that they would use tools and things too.
Well, I mean, it's not unheard of in, chimpanzees are known to have rudimentary tool usage and things like that. So, I mean, it's not at all unheard of. And if you, extrapolate that these things are much more intelligent than chimpanzees or the other great apes, not saying that they are an ape, but, if you categorize them that way and say they're much more intelligent than that, then it would make sense that there would be some tool usage involved.
What do you think about the people that think they're like extra-dimensional? They can come in and out of here as they please.
Boy, that would really explain a lot, wouldn't it?
It kind of makes sense.
I don't know. There's so many theories. And, so many things that's happened. You know, we lost here the other day, we lost Linda Godfrey.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had heard about that, the Michigan dog man. I remember years ago, Linda and I were talking, and I asked her, I said, Linda, I said, what was the craziest thing you've ever witnessed or experienced? And she looked me in the eye and she said, honest to God, she said, years ago, I was following a track line, and she said it came out of a woods, across a gravel road, and she said, remind you, there's 6 to 8 inches of snow on the ground, and she said it went probably 50 yards out in a cut bean field in the snow, and she said the tracks just stopped.
That's crazy.
She said, I have no, she said it wasn't blowing or anything like that. She said, you know, these tracks are perfect in a straight line, just exactly like they should be. And she said 50 yards out into this cut bean field, they just stopped.
That's weird.
I don't know. I mean, I've heard things like that. I've read so many reports and talked to people, the portals and all these kind of things. I've never witnessed it, but I definitely don't close my mind to it, because I'm not going to say anybody is making something up. I'm not going to say anybody, you know, your eyes played a trick on you, nothing like that. I mean, there's so many strange things that happen. And at Crypticon, somebody asked me, they said, well, what do you know for sure? I said, after 30-something years, what I know for sure is that I understand less now than I did when I started.
That's the way it is, ain't it? It brings up more questions than it does answers.
It does, and that's what drives me to keep going, is to try to find answers. But, oh my, just as soon as you think you get a grip on something, something happens and it changes it all.
I had a gentleman on a couple months ago. He was talking about one day back in the 60s, him and a couple of his buddies were out in the hills, and he has been looking for treasure most of his life, looking for like silver and stuff out in these caves and things around here. And him and a couple of his buddies were out one day, and they were up on this big rock cliff trying to figure out a good way to get down to the bottom to look around in the cave area to see if they could find anything. And he said while they were up there, this big white devil, he called it, came up and walked up to that rock cliff and just went in there and stayed for a while. And they were all scared, they were all afraid, and they didn't want to move or nothing, so they waited a few minutes, and it came out of the cave and just walked into a tree that was nearby, just like kind of ran toward the tree, I guess it was, and just kind of disappeared. And he said there's like a shimmering glitter all around the tree and stuff, and it just disappeared. And I don't know what in the world that could have been. It sounded like a Bigfoot, though, the way he explained it being a big, hairy white thing.
Yeah, I've got I mean, the type of work I did, and my mind's very mechanical. If this gear turns this way, this other one's going to turn counterclockwise up. You know, everything has to fit in my mind, and I have experienced so many things that just don't fit. I mean, I've been out on location. I have seen, with my naked eye, seen shadows moving, and you throw a therm on them, and there's nothing there.
What?
Pull the therm away and look, and you see the shadows moving from tree to tree, and you therm it again, and there's nothing there.
That's wild.
And, I mean, things like that. There's so many things that I've witnessed that I can't even begin to explain. I can't wrap my mind around why some things are the way they are, but, yeah, I mean, I definitely don't close my mind to it. I've just not been privileged enough to experience it. But I have seen a video in someone's possession that I truly trust. And they took the video, and it actually shows something bipedal coming down this hillside. And if you saw the movie Predator,
yeah,
that shimmering camouflage, that's what this was. And I saw the video, and I know the person that recorded it, and I do trust them. I do think they're genuine, and can't even begin to explain it. Don't know.
It's weird.
It is. Like I said, you know, I'm basically a flesh and blood type person. You know, that's what I believe because that's what I've experienced and witnessed. And until I witness something different, that's where I'm going to stand. But there's an awful lot of people that claim to have seen some things that just are really hard to get your mind around. But, you know, only one of them has to be right for it to be true.
Yeah, it sure makes you wonder. It's some weird stuff. I've heard that on these other shows and stuff before, too, that Predator. That's just crazy. There's no logical reason that should exist, but people see it.
Yeah, I mean, I've witnessed things that, and a lot of people have witnessed, they call them orbs. And I can't no more tell you what that is than anything. I can tell you that I've seen it, and I've seen different colored ones. I've seen them stationary. I've seen them move through a woods. I have no earthly idea what it is.
Phil that used to be in our UFO group, he passed away, but he was telling about one time he lived in Florida. One of those orbs just came right through his house. Came in, they had their living room door open. It came through like the storm door, just kind of floated through the house and went out the back kitchen door.
Yeah, I have no earthly idea what that is. We've been out in the woods, and we've sat and watched them, and there's been things beyond that the laws of physics tell you can't be, but yet you experience things. And I have no earthly idea how to explain some of the things that we've had happen. I don't know. Like I said, the more you get into it, the stranger it becomes.
That's for sure. Just it leaves so many questions. It's crazy.
Oh, it does. It does. And we've had some really close encounters, and we've had some really good people out with us, very highly educated people, and some of them made it through the night, and then first light they're packing up and they're gone. They've been spooked, they've been startled, they're done with this, and they pack their stuff and they leave. Some of them just sit around and just shake their head. And, they ask you questions, and it's like, I have no earthly idea. I saw the same thing you did. I can't explain it if you can't. And that's where you go with it. And a lot of those things, even seasoned people that's been in it forever, they hold a lot back that they don't make public, simply because they can't explain it. And how can you talk about something and, be considered to be knowledgeable on it when you can't even begin to explain it to yourself?
Yeah, it's crazy. There's just so many things in the world that can't be explained, and I just love every bit of it. I'm all ears for it.
Oh, I am too, and I can't. It's kind of a sick and twisted mind that just keeps pushing, wanting to know more. When things make absolutely no sense, and you just got to keep diving into it more and more and harder just to try to make sense of it. A logical person would say, nope, that's enough, and turn around and walk away from it. But yeah, there's just something wrong with people like us that keep going after this.
Yeah, it's the way I am. It's just addictive. I just want to hear more.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think about it day and night, all the time.
That's the way I am. I've learned just like the last few years here recently. I've distanced myself from people that just don't believe in it. That's the only kind of people I want to hang around now are like believers.
I've got a pretty broad base of friends, and I don't hide it from any of them. Some of them, they don't believe it. Some of them are on the fence, and then there are some of them that do. And I always tell the ones that ask me questions, just being ornery, just kind of taking little stabs at me. I'll say, I tell you what, come go. Come go with me. Come set out in the middle of the woods with me at 2 a.m. with no lights on, and, experience what I experience.
Yeah, you can change their mind in a hurry.
Well, you can, and most of them won't even entertain the idea of doing that.
Yeah, that's what bugs me. They shut it down. They say it don't exist, but then they don't want to try to experience it and stuff. They just say it's crazy.
Yeah, if there's nothing there, then there's no danger.
There's a guy that works with me and Dwayne. He loves ghost stories. He's always talking about these shows, American Haunting and all this stuff, and loves that kind of stuff. But whenever me and Dwayne start talking about Bigfoot, he just starts cracking up. He says, "You are crazy. No Bigfoot." I'm like, man, how can you believe in ghost stories and stuff, but you don't believe in that?
Well, I've never gotten into the paranormal side simply because, one of the big reasons is I don't have time. This eats me up day and night the way it is now. I don't have time for another thing to search after. But with the evidence that's out there, it's pretty hard not to at least entertain the idea that, maybe there is something.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But, and Keith, I really appreciate you coming on this week. Tell people...
Hey, I'm more than happy.
What's the Facebook group again? And we'll get some people coming up.
The Northern Kentucky Bigfoot Research Group.
Yeah, be sure to subscribe to him there and share your stories. That'd be great. I've been on the group for a while, and it's good to see all these different stories. If your listeners have any questions, you can reach out to any of us in our little core group, and we will get back to you and help you in any way we can. That's awesome. And thank you again for taking the time to come on this week. I really appreciate you. And
hey, thanks for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and be happy to come back anytime you'll have me.
That sounds good. And you did great for your first podcast. Good job. And hope you have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Take care.
Yep. God bless you, sir.
God bless you.
And that's about all the big show for this week. We really appreciate you joining us. And if you've got a true scary story and you'd like to be a guest on the show, send an email to indarkplacespod@hotmail.com. We'll see you again right here next week. God bless you. Whee, that was fun.